Hello, my friend. Thank you so much for joining this episode of the Enneagram and Marriage Pod. Today, we're talking about goals for busy couples and staying flexible without losing your standards. With Colton Simmons, no one better to do this than with somebody who's in that Enneagram 1 busy doing space and also married to somebody in a 3 busy doing space, achieving. And so we get today to talk to him about how you can do this in your relationship. And Colton has so much education and experience as a human, but also is a leader in the Enneagram space as well. He has an awesome YouTube channel and podcast, You've Got to Type. He has so much fun taking time in his own moments and schedules, not just on a routine schedule, but actually listening to what is really happening in his life. And from that space, creating and making content that uplifts others and also gives the practical tools we all need. So, already from that intro, you can hear that he is very intentional with his time, which we love. But we're just getting a sneak peek into his life as an Enneagram 1, into his story, and also into some of these ways you too can learn from him about being less rigid and more flexible as you also get your goals on. So I love that that's an overarching narrative. And I also want to name that as I reviewed this time together, I really see this as an opportunity to gain a lot of insight about Enneagram 1s. So if you have someone in your life who is in the Enneagram 1 space, I invite you to share this episode with them or to learn more about them, because I think he hits on something extremely important that a lot of us who are with ones or are ones know about ones. And that's the relationship they have with the critic and how it lands with them. And there's extrapolations you can continue to make for your relationship outside of this, as you know, what he shares. So it's a really nice deep dive into some of the misconceptions about ones and also the heart for growth that they have. So I love it. And of course, every one of us is unique, but today we are getting this awesome time with Colton. Make sure you follow him at his podcast and also at his YouTube, which are both in the show notes. And of course, if you're in a high achieving pairing like ones threes, threes eights, one eights, or any driven combination, you are going to find gold here. Also, if you just need inspo for getting moving, also stay right here. So happy to have you on the Enneagram and Marriage podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Great to be here.
Oh my goodness, you have such a wealth of knowledge, information, and even vulnerability I have heard you share across different platforms. You are going to tell us about your type and so much more today, but can you start just letting those who have not heard of You've Got a Type yet know a little bit about you, your
Yeah.
Enneagram type you're pairing?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm an Enneagram 1 with a 9 wing self-preservation instinct. And I got into the Enneagram when I was in seminary. I have a master's degree in theology, and I started to learn about it from friends that had kind of come through the Franciscan tradition and kind of like more anecdotally, like, hey, I took this test when I was in high school or whatever. And then I
Mhm.
was a big fan of Richard Rohr, and it turns out Richard Rohr had a book on the Enneagram, and I loved him. And I was like, wow, I didn't really think that he would be writing a book dedicated to this. And then I got even deeper into that. And then I found out we use it in counseling and spiritual discernment. And so then I started kind of blending, what I thought would be like my ministry with like what the Enneagram work is. More so, spiritual discernment, because it's not a, psychology degree. It's more, I don't want to say less structured than like a therapeutic setting would be.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it still kind of allows pastors to be a little bit therapeutic in their advice and guidance to people. And so that's where I picked it up, and that was my passion with it.
Mhm.
Um, and then I had a long road after seminary. I didn't know if I wanted to work in the church, had my own, crisis of faith, if you will, started working in nonprofits, went into marketing technology. And then right around COVID, I'm a big YouTuber, so I watch a ton of content, ton of videos. I was watching stuff pop up on YouTube about the Enneagram and Instagram. I just couldn't believe it was so popular. It felt like it was a niche thing when I was in seminary in like 2014 or whatever. And then all of a sudden it was like I had friends that had no spiritual inkling or whatever were talking about it constantly. And I was like, wow, this is really popular. And I started watching things on Instagram and YouTube and hated it. I was like, this is not good. This is so cheesy. This is like fortune cookie stuff.
Right, right.
Or it's like a
Especially with the
parlor trick.
quick, yeah, like this is
Yeah.
you're this if you're this, like really fast, right?
Yeah. Whereas like this is an Enneagram 2's coffee order. And I'm like, this is not what the point of this is. Like that's God. So
I
I got
get
really frustrated with that. And then obviously it was COVID, so I had a, abundance of time. Was working from home, had just, tons of time to kill. And I was like, you know what, maybe I normally like collaborative stuff. Like I'd had podcasts in the past that I'd done with friends, and I love that. I love conversational podcasts or interviewing someone who's wildly different than me.
yeah.
That's what I had a podcast called The Back Pew back in the day, and loved that. And that was the first time we started talking about the Enneagram
Mm,
because it was all about people from different walks of faith who would kind of like wander into the church and sit in the back with
yep.
people like me who had been in the church forever and were kind of on our way out. And I felt like that's where we would kind of have the most interesting conversations about faith and things like the Enneagram.
Yeah.
So I'd already had like a foray into like making content about it, but I didn't really like being the only person on camera or on a mic just solo talking about it because
Yeah.
that's just uncomfortable
Yeah.
for me in a lot of ways. But during COVID, I was like, I'm gonna give it a shot. I'll try to make some videos and at least give like a very structured breakdown for people who won't go read the authors that I read or take classes and courses that took. And so I
Mhm.
was like, all right, well, I'll give you the like Reader's Digest version of what this is, so you at least have some like good foundation.
Mm.
And that just kind of grew and grew and grew, and I felt like I enjoyed it more and more. Like I got less scared of being on camera, and I started enjoying the content creation more. And so then I was like, well, I'll just keep doing this kind of like in my spare time, and then it just turned into more and more of a kind of a side hustle, I guess. But it's more of like what my real passion is.
Mm.
Uh, so yeah, and then now it's turned into like a nice little flourishing YouTube channel for the most part, and yeah, that's where we are today. I'm cutting out a lot along the way. I was trying trying to be
Hey,
timely.
we'll dig in. We'll dig in,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
really neat. And people are already knowing your type, hearing a little bit about it, even as you share that. Tell us more about how you figured out your type and also your pairing, because that's a really cool part of your
Mm.
story too.
Yeah. Sorry, when you say pairing, what do you mean by that?
Oh,
Just
you and your wife's pairing.
okay, her pairing. Okay, oh yeah.
Yeah,
So
because
wasn't
I
sure
couldn't
which
meant like,
pairing, like
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, you're self-pres or
Yeah,
single or any of that. Yeah, but yeah.
yeah. So I mean, I found I was flipping through the Wisdom of the Enneagram book, and it starts with ones, and I just read like the first paragraph of like the overview that Rizzo and Hudson wrote, and I was like, holy crap, like
Mm.
this is very, this is like rattling off my interactions with my dad. This is rattling my interactions off with my romantic partners, with my friends, and just like the first couple pages. And it was very revealing. And I'd not seen a personality test or anything be so piercing so quickly. Um,
Mm.
and I just love that it was deep. It was getting into, it rolled in psychological and spiritual aspects into one thing. And it wasn't like the Myers-Briggsy, like, you probably like long periods of alone time or whatever. And like, yeah, 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 yeah. Like lots of people like that. So
Mhm.
I was just cut by how specific it was because that's what I like. I don't like the small talk, fluffy fortune cookie kind of, even the way that like astrology gets treated these days, even though there is like a deeper beauty, I think, to astrology, the kind of colloquial version of it today is really kind of cheesy to me. Um, and so I thought this was like beautiful. I was like, man, if someone can own their type and is willing to talk about it, we are going to have some really deep interactions and we're going to find things that we relate on in a very deep way that are more than just like our personal preferences and like habits, which is like most like disc and Myers-Briggs. I know there's like a devout Myers-Briggs following out there that's like, no, it's so deep and you could get nuanced. And it's like, I know,
Mhm.
it's just not treated that way as often. So yeah,
Yes,
that's what
that's
got me into it. Oh,
Mhm.
sorry. And then you asked about my wife. We bonded. One of our original things that we bonded over was the fact that we were both reading the Enneagram before like anybody else was really talking about it in our church or spiritual context way back in like 2015 or something like that, 2016. I don't know. So yeah, we had that just sparked our deeper conversations, and we had both met in church, and so we had like there was a lot of like spiritual conversations around, but like they still didn't feel that deep. And then the Enneagram was that thing tugging you deeper, and I loved that she was into roar and all that. Um, and so yeah, it was also just had the respect for like how prominent she was. She had a great job at like high up role at a nonprofit. She was also like doing poetry around the world in like New Zealand, and then she was also leading a church. And I was like, holy crap, I barely do like one leadership position well, and it's draining.
Yeah.
And she's doing like four leadership things. And so I had like it started with the foundation of like respect and being impressed, and then having a spiritual depth underneath all that hustle was really cool. Because a lot of the people who were like hustle, 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 work hard, were I'm like, yeah, but you if you slow down, you're gonna freak out because you're gonna have all this stuff bubbling up that you haven't dealt with. And she was able to kind of do both. So yeah, that's where we bonded. And so yeah, she's a type 3 with a 4 wing, I would say, because I mean, she get that poetry outlet, that self-reflection, and being more okay with the heavier emotions. Otherwise, we wouldn't be together, I think, if she didn't have that. So yeah, that's
Makes so much sense that you're like, I had to see her beautiful heart, her heart willing to go deep in order
mhm.
to make sure that I could really truly mate for life. And I think that's beautiful that you realized that she is
Yeah.
that and spiritual as well, but also such a go-getter and
Hmm.
something that I think for those thinking about 1-3 pairings right now with us. And I know you're
Hmm.
going through an awesome pairing series, guys. He is on his pod, but basically just neat for them to hear that that's attractive to a 1 when their partner is making things happen, when they're in that doing space. But you also are balancing and you're like, I don't want just that. I really would have actually, it would have been a cautionary tale if it was just that.
Hmm.
So I love that.
Yeah.
That's for more mature 1s and 3s who actually know that part is you
Yeah.
have to slow down and do your work spiritually, or like you said, it'll all come down tumbling over you. And that sounds like that's been
Which,
part of your journey, right?
yeah. And if anyone's watching The Diplomat right now, I feel like it's a great example of a 1-3 pairing because yeah, it's a great TV show on Netflix. But it's about like an ambassador and her husband, and their dynamic is like, it's the genders are reversed, but it's like a lot of the similar dynamic that me and my wife have. And we're like, oh, this is the dysfunctional stuff we could, we could have gone down.
Ooh, I
So
love
yeah,
that. And have
yeah.
you done a YouTube on that one yet? Because I know you do YouTube
No,
on different ones. Okay.
no, I haven't. Those ones are so, I like the character breakdowns, but a lot of people kind of do that. And so I was like, oh, I'll be more serious, and only if I'm really into something will I do it, like the Lord of the Rings thing, because I was in New Zealand and I've loved that since I was a kid. But yeah, I love the character breakdowns of stuff I really do watch. And so maybe someday. That
Yes.
one's just more of a negative cautionary tale, I feel like. So
Yeah, I
uh
get that. Yeah, you're
yeah.
like the diplomat, but like the way that people get fired up and then crank out just this and that typing, you're like, I can already
Mhm.
tell that for you to be such a deeper person, you're like, I don't want to get lost there and just
Yeah.
typing characters. Is that right?
Yeah, and I just don't want to feed into like big old stereotypes, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
there's just a lot of like, to me, like meaningless debates. Like if you've ever been on like personality database, someone turned me on to that, and I'll look and people are just debating like, what type is Frodo? And I'm like, I did this as like for fun, guys. This is not like the end of the world. You guys are like going 3 weeks deep on this debate of a fictional character. I don't. I guess it's fun, but it's just not for me, you know?
Yeah, I am right there with you that I love
Yeah,
it for the simple part, but it's more of, and I've surveyed our audience, we're all in the same boat that we want depth here, but every now and
yeah,
again, because we're such
yeah,
serious people, it's like we need a fun, light episode where we're like, let's take
yeah,
the characters off of Parks and Rec or something. But like, again,
yeah.
if
So
somebody
funny you
was
say
to
that.
write
Yeah,
you a
yeah,
treatise on it,
yeah.
your YouTube, you're like, don't do that. So guys, go to his YouTube,
Yeah.
watch it. Of course, Lord of the Rings, everyone here knows we're obsessed. But
Yeah.
like also take it with a grain of salt. Like it's just for fun and it might even help you to find your type. Sometimes people do find their type through,
Yeah.
so that's fun too.
I find that's where I step on some landmines every once in a while when I say someone's type, a character's type is not the one they think it is because they are like, I'm like them. And it's like, well, we might have mistyped then.
Oh,
Let's, you know.
like not trying to step on toes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
100%
Yeah.
relatable. And as a type 1, we know that any one of us who has an arrow to 1, a wing to 1, and especially as a 1, there's going to be a sensitivity around judgment because you're already working with your own inner critic voice. And I think this is a great marriage topic because clearly we want to be better, but we also want to have discernment and gentleness and not to be critiquing ourselves with blaming, with, criticism, some of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse that many of our
Mm,
listeners know about therapeutically.
mm.
What would you say is something you're probably, I would say, learning or have learned about when we do get a critique from somebody, if we're in that one space, how can we land it a little differently versus just like the harshest voice possible that comes out sometimes?
Yeah, you mean so how to better receive a criticism?
Yeah, yeah. And then we'll talk about the other
Yeah.
end too. But like even just that, like when people are coming in at you, like, no, this person was this type, and I was thinking it was.
Yeah. I have to like separate it by what's the medium of the criticism because as a creator or you doing anything publicly, you get feedback from people that are like completely anonymous and you don't know who they are and you don't know what their place in life is. And when I was first starting, I'd respond to everything. Like if you go back to the first few, because there was not that many comments, so I would respond to everything, and it's just like getting an email, and I'm like an inbox zero person, like
Yeah.
neurotically. And so
Wow.
then I would respond to all this criticism because it came in, and I was like, well, they watched, and I should respond. And then they get like frustrated or give like a snappy response, and I was like, why are you doing this? Like, you
Mhm.
don't need to respond. Let it be there. It's they don't know you. They're not invested in your personal growth or even having like a positive interaction. So if
Mhm.
the criticism is coming from that medium of like anonymity and kind of meanness, then I'm like, you just can't, you just let it go. Let it sit there and die. Um, but if it's coming from someone that has either engaged with you like this, like if we had a disagreement, it's like, well, you invited me here, you're
Yeah.
physically present, you're
Yeah.
curious, then let's take this as far as it needs to go. Because there's an intentionality and a presence to it. And that to me is like if a criticism comes from that place, I'm almost always shocked because it doesn't happen that often.
Yeah.
Because, as a one, you kind of train people not to give you critical feedback, or you beat them to the punch. So if someone gives me something new and from a loving place of like presence, it'll sit with me for weeks or months, being like, man, I'll just ruminate on it to make sure I give it credence. The hard part is just not responding right away. And some people are more gifted at that than others. I would say ones usually have a reason for why they're doing what they're doing. So coming back with an immediate defense or justification is really tough.
Mhm.
Uh, which, my wife could speak to more because, I am always like, well, I did this because of this. And if you don't like that, then you're not following the reason and the rationale as to why that's the better way to do things. And
Mhm.
that's just hard because that gets exhausting to people. And then they just stop telling you stuff. And then you're in a scary place of like, now you're isolated and no one's telling you what you're doing is wrong or unhelpful. So, yeah,
Mhm.
I think sitting with it and recognizing where it's coming from. I think so much of the Enneagram, no matter your type, is just pausing and learning to notice
Mhm.
and criticism to pause, like, okay, is this stinging me because it's true, or is it stinging me because I haven't had any coffee and I'm tired and my kid's sick and I'm just upset right now. And I don't really care what this person on YouTube said, but I'm just a little upset. And that's my lightning rod. So I'm like, to me, like a minute feels like eternity when you're criticized. Like if I can wait a minute, well, literal 60 seconds, it's almost like all it takes to be like, okay,
Mhm.
what am I feeling right now? But that's not always the easiest thing to do in the heat of a conversation. It's a lot easier if it's like a text or an email or something to just give it a minute.
Yeah. And I think that is double for our anyone who has that body type space or aggressive assertive space where you're ready. And so I think that it's neat for you to just even tell people listening that a 60-second pause does help. It's a very tangible takeaway from today's episode if they share that desire to move in with logic or whatever, a
Hmm.
defense. And you're reminding, of course, that defensiveness is one of the others of those four horsemen of the apocalypse that we don't want to do. So you're reminding,
Yeah.
take the pause at least. And sometimes I love that you said, and I think this is because we're both self-pres types, that you said sometimes it is just that you're tired and your window of tolerance is down. And so that really helps listeners to know when it's that, it's just a you thing. And people won't be as scared to tell you because you're starting to do your work and say, you know what, I maybe did come across harsh because I'm tired. Or maybe what you said deserves more time than this, and I'm tired right now and I can't give that to you. So,
Yeah.
this little bit of assessing if you're tired is one part of it. And then when you're saying, I think, and I want to clarify, if somebody comes in and your inner critic feels attacked, and let's say it just feels somewhat legitimate, and you're like,
Mm.
okay, I think you actually nailed it, that this might be true. Although you said instinctually first, maybe it starts with a no way, and then you
Hmm.
process. How do you help your inner critic to not take it too far, like you're all bad? Because I know that's something a lot of body types would love to know the journey on that. And I also know it is a journey.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're kind of talking about shame a little bit, where you're going like, I'm taking the I did a bad thing to an I am a bad person, and
Exactly. The energy
it's
out of
y-
control.
yeah, it's I don't struggle as much, luckily, with thinking like I am a horrible person because I did something bad. I do worry that like other people will think that and then treat me differently. So
Mhm.
there's like a lot of optics involved in it, which is also why I bond a lot with a three of like, I just want to be seen that like I'm doing the right thing. And so it's, yeah, I don't so much struggle with like it's gonna mess up my identity. I think the only people who really can do that, there's like my wife, my mom, and my dad are like, and my best friend are the only ones that are close enough to really like, if they said, you know
Yeah.
what, Colton, you are this, those are the only people that have like the credence to where I'd be like, dang,
Right.
maybe I am. And I'd have to like majorly mess up for it
Yeah.
to get there.
Yeah.
Um,
That's good. I
so
like that.
yeah, I don't know if I'm answering that all the way. I'm trying to have like an honest reflection of it. But yeah, most of it is like justifying the action because I want to be seen as a good person. Because I
Mhm.
know that I am, but I know that I grew up with a dad who was like, oh, because I left the shoes misaligned, I'm a disrespectful kid. And it's like, but I got straight A's and I like good. I have undefeated in tennis right now. And it's like what all this other stuff. My teachers love me, like with the shoes. So like that's
Mhm.
where my defense comes from, is like, haven't I done enough to like merit a few mess ups, And that's where I get the frustration. And it's
Mhm.
not so much from like I'm a piece of crap. It's more so like, wow, people don't appreciate or really see me and all the work that I've done. And that's deflating. That's where I struggle more with like discouragement, and feeling like there's not enough good things you can do in the world to make an impact because people are just going to be negative or critical, or
Mhm.
they're not going to like the graphic or the word you chose, and it's like, well, that's discouraging, I guess, more so than feeling ashamed.
Yeah. And I think that's a great, thank you for just a vulnerable, great in that way distinction for all of us to just get inside of the heart of a one in that way, to know a lot of ones I think track with you there that you work so hard to do what is best. And then when somebody complains, it's like you have worked so hard to
Yeah.
do what was best that it
Yeah.
is so discouraging. So
Yeah.
that really helps people to know that why, when you do criticize a one, it feels like there's a lot of, I've heard it said, a lot of already some sort of a chemical in the air that when you light the match, there's going to be a fire.
Yeah,
And
that's a good way of putting it.
yeah,
Yeah.
that sticks with me. But I think that you just also told spouses inadvertently that when they do have something, it is important to bring it because you do care deeply for those inner circle people. Like,
Mhm.
maybe this person didn't think that this post was good or this YouTube, but when it's a family member and they're hurt, you do want to know. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we should technically be able to handle all of it if we're really like in a healthy, centered place. Even the random hate or criticism on YouTube, just like, okay, sorry, I didn't like it.
Mhm.
But the stuff with significant others and people you're cohabitating with is tough. Is
Mhm.
the toughest, because that's where I pride myself on being a considerate person. So
Mhm.
doing stuff that people won't even realize I did, because I was like, well, if I was them, I'd want this put away, or this door closed here, or that thing, this laundry looks full, I'll do that and put it away. And so when you get the like, hey, how come you didn't scrape the food off your plate? It's like, what? It's exactly what you said. So that's why I said so much of it to me is pausing and just being able to notice. And a minute, that's why I said a minute feels like eternity, especially if you struggle with rage, which I would say is the chemical in the air that you're saying in that analogy for ones. And rage, you don't get any time. The
Mhm.
problem with a rage response is it's subconscious, and it just goes out. And that's the hardest, I think, struggle of oneness, is just knowing you're going to lose that battle a lot, and being able to pause after it comes out, which is like all you can do, and then go like, okay, that was a rage response. I'm really tired, and that I don't have the bandwidth for that. I'm sorry,
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm. Yeah,
so that's
that's
one of the biggest things I've tried to practice. That's like my practice with my wife, is like, okay, you can mess up. It's okay to mess up, as soon as you mess up, you just call it as quickly as you let it slip out.
mhm.
And that seems to balance the scales really quick, like a
Yeah.
real timely. notice or real timely like call out.
Mhm. Yeah, this is, I think, deeper than we've gone with the one on the show in this particular way. Appreciate it so much
Yeah.
because I do think that back to stereotypes, the stereotype of ones is that it's especially self-pres ones, which I know is your subtype, but it's
Mhm.
a stereotype that it's all they do is pick at themselves and say, you're bad and you're wrong. And you're really
Mhm.
saying, no, we're working so dang hard at being good.
Mhm.
That's the truer story. And then when somebody comes at us as a body type, we react defensively sometimes, and it does come out at rage as rage sometimes. But you just gave
Yeah.
everyone who was in that space with you the reminder that when you can name it and say, hey, I was tired, I feel
Mhm.
overwhelmed, I'm doing a lot. And when you said that, it felt like, it's like I'm not being seen and appreciated for all that good I'm doing. You just said it really landed well with your partner, whoever you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And having kids will stretch you as much as you can possibly be stretched in that area, especially as a one, because you can't do everything right and everyone's exhausted.
Right.
So then you start to go like, well, if everyone's exhausted, what's my excuse now? And then you have to find like a reason that feels even more justifiable. But yeah, it's hard. I don't necessarily walk around picking at myself. I think
Right.
I walk around going like, how can I make the best of what's in front of me and be a good steward to all of this stuff? Because that's what my purpose is in life or whatever. So yeah,
Mhm.
I find some of those tropes to be a little cheesy. And honestly, I feel like a lot of them mislead like sixes to think they're ones or twos to think they're ones. Cause it's like, that's not really what the one is. So much of for me was that anger and being a gut type and that resisting reality was one of the most important themes I felt in like what the gut types do, which is way different than like sixes and twos. And knowing that that's where my physical rigidity comes from, that's where like my emotional rigidity comes from, all that stuff. Even like a lack of a quiet mind comes from that. Like, I can't let it just be broken. I gotta do something about it. Uh, so
That
more so than being like, I didn't put the dishes away. Right. Like, I don't know that's not like ever a thing that I was like neurotic about. It's more so from a sense of control, um,
Mhm.
and rightness, I would say.
Yes, and I think your goal is to make it better. Like, okay, that
Yes.
wasn't
Yeah.
done well. Let's execute that just a little bit better to make sure the intent can come across smoothly. And that's
Hmm.
where idealism comes in, and you've really named it. And that's what you mean when you said resisting reality.
Yeah.
Thank
Hmm.
you. I like that you just clarified that for those of us who are not in that space. As a
Hmm.
fellow idealist, I definitely get that part of it. Now, if you could tell us a little more, you alluded to with that foreshadow, hey, dad was really hard on me about things, but you also said, I care deeply about my parents. Um, if you could just share a little bit about why you think the one in a lot of people who are ones, maybe you can only speak for yourself, of course, but at the same
Hmm.
time, you know other ones, like why do you think childhood wounds are still with us today? Do you think it's a nature nurture thing, like
Oh
this is
boy.
how you grew up, or are you
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, no, I was always a one and my dad was also a one? Maybe you have a little bit of a thought about that.
I think it's a great question. Let me kill this humidifier real quick. Sorry, you probably can't see it on your camera, but my room is like turned into a
Yeah.
like a smoke den in here.
Oh, that's funny.
Uh
Literally.
trying to resist all the sickness and sinus stuff going around in our house. And
Yeah,
I'm like, I
take
hope this isn't on camera. It's like geez.
no. Yeah.
It's like a sauna in here. Yeah, so nature and nurture comes up a lot, especially in conversations with like in trainings or in comments or whatever. And that's why I did the childhood series way back in the day that I've like wanted to redo for so many reasons as I've gotten older. But I think it's obviously both. I think there's been studies born or done with like temperament and like in brand new babies having different temperaments as far as like playfulness or curiosity or fussiness or all that stuff. So I do think we're born with certain temperaments, and you also get the genetic breakdown of your parents and like all the stuff they are and how they function. One of my like mentors and father figures is a very, very healthy too. And like he's just so gentle with people. And then you get to know his dad and you're like, yeah, well, this is why your dad is like the most literally you guys are so calm and loving. You don't have like that hyper shame motor going. You've just like handled that so well that you're very like at peace and you're good and you just give, 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 give. And it's not from this needy place. There's so much love because you had two loving parents that just like really balanced you out. And so I think he's inherited the genetic breakdown of his parents. Like even his heart is just he has a low resting heart rate, and to the part where he had a pacemaker to just speed it back up. Whereas most men are like hypertension and it's going too fast.
Yeah.
And it's just a genetic thing. He's just a very calm guy, which makes him great at being loving and patient and giving. He's just, you know, I know so there's probably a lot of other twos out there whose heart rate is through the roof because they're worried about people and fixing and caring for 9 animals and 4 kids and all this stuff.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I think it's both nature and nurture. And then, sorry, what was the other part of your question?
Well, and how do you think that affects people as they grow up, and especially?
Oh, yeah. I mean, for me, I think our parents are like we're just little mirrors for them. Like I watch it in my little kid. He's 18 months now, and he literally is like a split of me and my wife. And so I know that I feel that way with my mom and my dad. My dad's a very unhealthy one. My mom is a fairly healthy 9. She's working on some stuff. Um, they're no longer together, and that's helping my mom be more bold and take adventures and do things for herself and expand her life in ways she was not going to do under the control of a one. And so I feel myself I kind of live with both those things, the free spirited, like I just want kind of chill vibes at home, and also like the controlling, let's lock things down, let's be serious, let's have order, let's make sure our finances are in order, like head of the household kind of vibes that can be good and bad. So I don't think there's any way to get that stuff out of our system all the way. I've done enough therapy just talking about my dad to where I'm like, I don't think this is going anywhere, even with EMDR and talk therapy and all this. It's like, it's just there. It's who we are. Um,
Yeah.
so I think it's really important to understand and not kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater, which I hear a lot of people do, where they go like, I hate sixes. My dad's a 6 or whatever, or my mom's just such a toxic 2. I just twos are the worst. And I'm like, that's the most unhelpful mindset with this stuff because that's in you. There's no way your mom's stuff is not in you, um,
Yeah,
or
that.
whoever that person is that grinds your gears.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that in. And I think that the older we are, there's examples we can take from Christ and
Hmm.
many other great teachers, but that help us to remember that the elders get up and walk away from the judgment. And so I
Hmm.
hear you doing that. As you said, as you get older, you're able to say, I have some of that too, and it's not all bad. And for those of us out there tempted to just say, this person is all bad or all good, it's so important that we allow for where there's breath, there's life, there's hope. And I
Yeah.
think that I was talking Lord of the Rings with you earlier, but it brings it back to
Yeah.
the Gollum character that I think many of our listeners also know and understand is also part of us too, as one
Yeah.
Tolkien scholar was reminding me, as we all have that
Yeah.
piece. And so thank you for being honest that, yeah, you do see some of the harsher traits of your dad in you, and you're working on those. And even with therapy, you're saying, this is part of me, and there's good to it too. There
Yeah.
can be a purpose even in our hard pieces. So thank you for letting people know they don't necessarily have to cut somebody out of their life completely.
Hmm.
And what would you say is one practice you do to make sure that doesn't get out of control? We talked about it a little bit earlier with you saying the 60-second pause, but is there anything else you've realized through therapy,
Hmm.
just insights with your type 3 wife, where you're like, I don't want to do this, what my dad did when he was less healthy?
Yeah. I mean, my dad was a big cutter outer of people. I think he still is. And so I'm like, I don't want to do that. There's a desire for healthy boundaries. He also grew up with like a crazy mom who like was very physically abusive and all that. So like, I know he has reasons for why he is the way that he is.
Honoring
And I'm
him.
like,
Mhm.
you literally just want like a little peaceful world to control. I
Yeah.
get that. The world is insane. The news every day is crazy. And if I mean, who would want a little island of like serenity and control where that's just like everything is just so? And I'm like, I know that I want that, and I know that it's not all bad, but what I got to do is like not literally lose every person in my family on the way to that and build something like that that's inclusive of other people and lets other people come in and go and kind of ruin my serenity every once in a while
Mm.
just for the sake of having love and relationships. Like my mentor that always is his motto is always you can be right or you can be in a relationship.
Hmm.
It's your choice. And it's like, boy, rightness is lonely. And I think that's where I've just tried to, like, as I've gotten older, uh, keep doors open and realize that even if I'm doing the loving thing, it
Hmm.
doesn't mean people are going to respond any better to it. And that's the hard lesson I've learned as I've gotten older, where I don't know, like when I was young, it was like all the cut or out or hard boundaries with people that I didn't, or friends that I thought were chaotic, or relationships I thought I needed to end. Then I started to like keep doors open for people and say like, yeah, come over anytime, but it's not going to be a one-way street anymore. And then they still leave. And you're
Right.
like, okay.
Yeah.
Every time they text me, I text them right back. The
Mhm.
same is what I do with my dad. Or if he asks to see like our son, it's like, okay, yeah, we can do a visit. But I'm not generating anything. Like I'm just here with the door open. And it's kind of that like
Mm.
prodigal son thing of like you don't have to go like chase the guy down in like the opium dens or wherever he's at and like the brothels or whatever. But like if they come back, you can go like come on in. Like,
Yeah.
this is how the house functions. This is what we do. You're more than welcome to come here. And that's kind of the best I can figure out how to do it because I've also had friends who chase like my wife has been her struggle has been like trying to be the best friend to all of her friends. And I was like, that's exhausting and causes anxiety spirals. And then when you start trying to ask for something back, they leave. And so then it's like, well, that doesn't work either. So we've learned a lot from each other where like to a degree, my social circle has gotten bigger and hers has gotten smaller. And it's a really interesting journey of figuring out from each other and from ourselves how this whole like boundary thing works, given what we've learned from our parents who had no boundaries or too many boundaries.
Mm.
So,
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm feeling that merging of like your mysticism as a faith person, but also the mysticism of marriage. Like there is a
yeah,
mystery in the one fleshness that tends to happen. And I'm not a sexual subtype, so there's also a squirming if I'm told like you and Wes have merged as the unity candle. I'm like, no, where's my
yeah,
freedom? But like I also
yeah.
see that so much in us and you guys and so many of the other couples that glow that we light up together. And I love that you just showed us yours. That was really neat
Mm,
to hear about how you're learning how to have relationships. And, something that I think we've seen with my husband being a social one, and this is where you and
mm.
him are alike, and I hope I can encourage you, is that now that we're mid 40s, we have a 20-year-old kid and down to 13, and a 17-year-old.
Wow.
We really have learned that his gift of doing exactly what you're doing has been so fruitful in the later years when many, if not most, friends who haven't been as careful, marriages are falling apart.
Oh
And
yeah,
coming back to him for that, hey, you were always here, you were my rock. Sometimes they can take a men's hiking trip together, just the two of them or
yeah.
with a group. But I guess I'm just reminding you like this is working, but you're planting seeds. And I
Hmm.
think you're getting a sense for that too already, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, that is the hard part with all this like spiritual, really nitty-gritty work is it you just take so much time to see the fruits of it, like what you're saying, like after all these kids, after getting a bit older, then you start to see, it worked, and
Yeah.
that's the hard part of encouraging people with Enneagram stuff sometimes is like, dude, this is not like a 3 week fix it thing. This is like a years and years and decades long of noticing and testing and like using your left hand to a degree, like to try to just function completely different and be like, but this isn't the way I could do it. And it's like, I know, it sucks.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. And you said I have that tension of like doing it right and will it work? And I know Wes still has that too, but like it is neat to see the validity. It does because I'm going to say it this way. There's not a lot of people like you guys out there who are trying to do the right thing in a relationship and being that thoughtful person to return a message. It sounds like your wife is. And of
mhm,
course that as a heart type and a 3, she's learning like I don't have to take care of all of it. Like I'm allowed to be loved too. And I think that's maybe her 4 that maybe self-sabotaged a little bit. And now she's learning like, no, I can rest, I can be loved, and I don't have to be always the giver. But like, I
mhm,
guess that I'm really just noticing that not that many people are that thoughtful. And that's why I think that people will come back to you. But I think we're all knowing, mystically speaking, I guess we have to say it in that way. But not everyone, like, how you just
Yeah.
named names, like, I don't know if those people will come back to you later, but I know that your faithfulness is important, and that is a beautiful legacy you're leaving for your young son to do things well, to love people even when they don't love you back. And I would tell you, as a parent with 20-year-old and down, it's very heart-wrenching ahead of you to think about all ahead of how many times
Yeah.
your child is going to be the good friend and they're
Yeah.
not going to get it back. I think that's even been a harder journey. But when they do find a solid gold friend like you or your wife, it is the most beautiful thing to watch because there are a few others out there and they will find them. He will.
Yeah.
So I want to encourage you.
Yeah.
But hopefully our
Appreciate it.
listeners too, thanks for being vulnerable there.
Yeah.
I also want to ask when you and your wife hit that point where I'm trying to do it right. And you kind of alluded to this earlier, but she's like, well, let's just get it done. What do you find helpful for other people who share this pairing with you about how you can merge that a little bit or get along a little bit better?
Yeah, I think for us, a lot of it comes down to knowing who's going to do the bulk of the work kind of is the breakdown and who gets to do it their way. And
Mhm.
so like for instance, like wedding planning was a big first like leap for us because we did a what do you call it, destination wedding in Europe. And so it was so much fun, but also like so much stress because you have so much to plan.
Yeah.
And it was so many debates about where to spend money or other these things. It's like, look, if you're going to tackle that, if you're going to coordinate that, then by all means do it the way you want to do it. But if I'm doing it, then we're going to do it the longer, methodical, cautious way or whatever, and more frugal perhaps.
Mhm.
Uh, and we do that with everything, like chores in the house or like who does what with like our son's care. It's like, well, if you want to do that and carry that responsibility and take them, then by all means. Like, I don't necessarily want to spend the money on that, but you're excited about it and you're going to take them, so
Mhm.
go nuts, you know. We also just talk about everything in a way that I think a lot of people find weird or I don't know. Like we just share everything is like shared and open and finances, friends, like we just talk about all, and that makes it really easy to know like what matters to each other. So
I love
yeah,
that.
I don't know if that answers is helpful for other people.
Yeah, it is because some ones and threes are running so fast that they're not doing that vulnerable sharing and they're letting the resentment and the shame build up and or sadness. And so I'm
Hmm.
happy that you just reminded people it's been a worthy process to talk it out and to make sure you're truly safe together.
Yeah.
And that you also have decided and designated that it's okay if things get done differently because we're not the same type. And when a one does something well, like when my husband makes us breakfast, it's always pretty perfect. And,
Yeah.
if I make breakfast, it's probably edible, but it's not
Yeah, yeah.
perfect. But I make breakfast more, maybe. I guess that's not the perfect analogy, but it's
No,
so many things like that, right?
yeah, I mean that's dinner's a big all those little things turn into big things when you live together or you're married. Like for us, it's like she makes dinner pretty much 5, 6 times a night because I can't cook.
Mhm.
And but I'm a cleaner. So then it was like, okay, well then I clean and she cooks. And it's like if I say we had to learn some nights I'm exhausted, I don't want to clean. So we're ordering food. And
Mhm.
she's like, but I have groceries. I'm like, I know, but my part of the thing is I don't want to do it. I don't want to clean tonight, so we're gonna order food. And it's like, okay, that's our compromise. You know what I mean? Or she can say like, I got it, I'll clean because I really want to make this thing. And you're like, then no resentment because I
Yeah.
told you I don't want to clean. So yeah, just being really like, and we'll do that stuff in front of friends, and sometimes they'll be like, wow, that was like you just bartered in like 40 seconds over like who how dinner was gonna happen, and it was very like rule based. It's like, yeah, but now there's no anger later, you know what I mean? And
Right.
so
You're
yeah,
this is two logical types paired together, which so many of
yeah,
us are jealous right now. But we have other things like, guys, just remember every pairing has
yeah.
strength. This is a beautiful thing about a one and a three, and it's others of us can reach for that too. That's what you and I and many listeners don't want the Enneagram to be is, well, you can't do that because you're not a one and a three. But we're just
Oh
making
yeah,
it's a strength when a one and three are healthy, but all of us can learn from you guys. So thank you. And as
yeah.
we land, I just want to make note of your amazing platform. You are building, it is
Thanks.
good build. And I think people need to hear more about that and to know what they can find as they do so. Tell us about yourself and what you're doing for helping with pairings, couple pairings, and otherwise.
Yeah. Oh, do you want me to talk about the series that's going on right now?
Ah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So right now I'm just kind of finishing a long series. It's every type in a relationship together. It's predominantly focused on like romantic pairings, although you can take a ton about how friendships will work or how coworkers may work, or if you're on the fence of between two types. I find it's been helpful for that too, where people go, I don't know if I'm a 6 or an 8. And it's like, well, I'm gonna go watch the 4-6 relationship video, and he's gonna break down all the theories where they're bonded, the ways that they're similar. And it's been a major labor of love. I've been writing and creating these for almost 3 years. And so now they are all out there, and I'm just doing short form clips to try to spread the word out there for now that are a little bit more fun and lighthearted because these are long form and deep. I try to pepper in as much levity along the way as possible,
Mhm.
as you'll see, especially at the end of the episodes. So yeah, it's I don't do the dual types, which I know some people have asked for, like a 9 and a 9, mostly because I did an overview series right before this where I said like the 5 things you need to know about every single type, and it covers like 5 core themes of how those types function in a relationship.
Mhm.
So if you are in a dual type relationship, I would suggest watching those. But for now, the dual types are out there, and I think they're a lot of fun because it gets into your shared traits, what one type is going to be attracted to in the other person, and vice versa. Where's conflict going to be, and then a little bit of advice at the end, to kind of help sew it all together. So yeah, those episodes are out there. You've got to type on YouTube and Spotify if you want to listen to them. I recommend listening to them with your partner in the room just because like their laughter will give you a good sign of what they're resonating with. So yeah, there you go.
I love that. And yes, they do want to. I already know this. Almost never speak for anybody, but this is such an overlap in such a good way that they do. And there's different information and you're systematic and you take so much time. And I really appreciate that you said it's a labor of love. And
Mhm.
that is meaningful because
Yeah.
it's a gift to them. So you guys need to check it out. It's in the show notes, but why don't you tell them where they can find you there and also at your YouTube as well?
Yeah, so on YouTube at You've Got a Type, you can find me. All my stuff is on my website as well, you'vegotatype.com. It's on Apple, it's on Spotify. I think it's most places that you'd want to listen to it. But yeah, and it's on Instagram a bit, so a little bit of everywhere. I go in spurts, so I apologize if you're like a content consumer junkie, like people who just want to watch with more, more, more. I go in big waves of creating content, and then I disappear from the platform a little bit to go write other stuff or study. So I do get that complaint a bit about like when's the next thing, and I'm like probably like 6 months. I don't know. So yeah, there's plenty of stuff out there. If you have suggestions of other things you want to watch, also open to that too. But yeah.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank you for sharing so much about yourself with
Yeah.
us today and also about what you're gifting us with. This has been such a joy. Thank you so much, Colton.
Yeah, thank you very much. I love the questions. I love how thoughtful your team has been about it. So, yeah, been a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so glad we got to have this helpful conversation with Colton about navigating marriage and life as now a parent and just busy, high achieving partners. And understand that that tension between standards and flexibility is real for all of us. But when you get somebody who has a desire to do things well with excellence, who also has a heart for family and for bonding and how to balance those, I know I am leaning in. So I'm so glad you're here doing exactly the same. And thank you so much. You can have goals without rigidity. You can have your standards without losing your flexibility. It is possible. And until next time, love living intentionally with you. Talk to you soon. Thank you again for listening with us. It was so wonderful to have you. I love knowing we're doing this journey together, not perfectly, but with love, grace, and hopefully some fun too. If you loved today's episode, make sure you leave us a 5-star review at Apple Podcast or Spotify so others can find it too. Visit our show notes so you can get all the links from today's show, as well as enneagramandmarriage.com, the Instagram, the Facebook, and all over the place. Make sure you spread the word. Love living intentionally with you. Bye-bye.